Okay, so we're going to take a look at another faction now, and we're going to take a look at the factions who have been given arguably the biggest buff from vanilla, and that will be the Orcs of Gundabad. So I will set up a little battle, and then we'll take a look at their roster. Okay, so you can see really from the size of the roster just how much of a makeover Gundabad have undergone from vanilla, where they were, trash, let's be honest. They didn't really have much going for them, other than the fact that you could say that their variety of trolls and the amount of infantry they could field could be used to overwhelm the opponent, but in most cases their lack of presence at range or up close, and their almost complete lack of good cavalry, because of course they were reliant on Rudauer scouts and wargs, meant that they were really not terribly viable in a field battle. They were okay on the attack in a siege, but in a field battle they were very much outclassed. But now they have been given a lot of new things. Now, obviously, they still have stuff like the Snaga Stalkers and Orc Fellas. Interestingly enough, the Orc Fellas' attack score is actually not too bad. Of course, defensively, they will die off very quickly, but shock infantry in general is pretty good at dealing damage, and the Orc Fellas are no different, really. They are actually, I'd say 280 is very much worth it. If you need to save money somewhere, getting these guys is actually not a bad idea. Obviously, the Snaga Stalkers, with with a cost of 50, it really says it all, but, we'll move on. I may be a fan of the Snaga Stalkers, but many people are not. The Orc Halberdiers, of course, they're a returning unit. I've had bad experiences with them in vanilla, but, cheap halberds and cheap pikes will do a good job for you, provided you use them correctly, and the Orc Halberdiers are no different. Effective against armor is always nice. And then you have the Orc Marauders, of course. The numerous infantry is what you can call the Orc Marauders. Of course, I have actually turned down the unit scaling from epic to large. So usually these guys have got 250 in their unit, but for performance sake, I'd rather have it on maximum settings and have less chance of a crash. So I've turned it down a little bit, but nonetheless, Orc Marauders, still a very numerous unit, will still good at overwhelming the enemy. You can bulk your army out with these guys and then have your more elite units elsewhere. Another shock infantry unit that you have available to you is the Rudauer Savages. Now, again, better than the Orc Fellas, of course. They're better at defending themselves, and they have a higher attack score as well. The Rudauer units, of course, the new ones are a good addition. The Rudauer in Moss were also very, very good for Gundabad, and it's no different here. They are, of course, a new unit for Reforged. They weren't in vanilla, and it's a good addition to have a sort of another lower tier but still very effective shock infantry. A dual wielding unit. Now, this is kind of interesting because they actually have a higher defense score than an attack score. And the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders are an interesting unit. I've only actually used them once, so maybe we can use them in this little demonstration as well. Again, they tend to just be heavy infantry. That's the way to think of them. And there are other heavy infantry units which you could say are better, but they're still an interesting unit to have available to your roster. I would say they're maybe a little bit expensive if you're going to min-max to the extremes. You're not really going to be using these guys. They're a little bit too expensive when you compare them next to some of these guys like the Guardians of Khan Doom and Black Uruks down here. You might want to spend just that little bit more to get a little bit more effective of a troop, but they're still pretty good for what they are. And the two pike units. Now this is a very important addition because the Witch Realm Pikemen and the Rudauer Heavy Pikes both have the same sort of stats. I think the Witch Realm ones, though, they increase in cost. No, they don't. Okay, so that still hasn't been changed, but I understand that this is going to change a little bit because at the moment there's really no reason to have the Rudauer Heavy Pikes. The Witch Realm ones are better and for the same cost. And also they have more in the unit, which is something that's quite interesting. But the Pikes in general, they perform a little bit differently to halberds, and the pikes are also very, very good stats-wise. So the Witch Realm pikemen in particular give Gundabad that option to be very, very strong on the defense, which is something they never really had in vanilla. Like, you could stack up with several rows of halberdiers, I suppose, but they didn't have spear wall in vanilla, which was always a bit of a problem. Whereas now, Gundabad have got a very tough line that you can deal with. They also have regular spears, and the Gundabad Guard are an excellent spear unit. Their very high defense is what makes this so. And they are able to beat spears that have hit points elsewhere simply because of this high defense and the fact that they have good stats and good accoutrements. The Gundabad Guard are a unit which I don't often find myself using as much as maybe I should because of how good they are, because often I prefer to go for good pikes if the faction has it, and Gundabad do. But the Gundabad Guard, I think, are a very good unit. Very worth getting, if you can. The Rudau Berserkers, another interesting heavy infantry unit. They have hit points, a decent attack score, they're effective against armor because they have axes, and decent defense. Again, a very good value for money proposition I find the Rudau Berserkers to be because of their hit points. They survive very well in melee. There may not be very many of them in a unit, only 91, but if you can mix them in with something like Orc Marauders, you're gonna get some good returns. Then you have the Black ORCS of the Mountains. Now, the stats of these guys, 30, 30, and 11, and effectiveness against armor, it means they are essentially kind of a heavy infantry, shock infantry hybrid, if you will. Now, they don't have hit points, which does mean that they aren't as good as some of the elite shock infantry at dealing damage, and they aren't as good as some of the elite heavy infantry at taking damage. But I feel like these guys are a good happy middle. Now, 900 is quite a lot, but if you're willing to sort of balance your army and maybe forsake some of the more expensive units that Gundabad have and have a more balanced approach in the middle, you can have a few Rudabs. Well, you can only have one, which is a bit of a shame, but hold on. So you can have two. And the cost doesn't increase too badly, so maybe you can have three if you really push it. But the Black ORCS of the Mountains are similar to that in many ways, because you have two units here which are not overly expensive, they're not over 1,000, and you can have a few before the cost increases, and so if you mix these two together, you're going to have a good damage dealing force that can take a hit and effective against armor all the way through. Not to say that Gundabad's higher tier stuff isn't fantastic, of course, and we'll get to that shortly. Mountain Trolls, there's not really much to say with the Mountain Trolls. You know, they are the lowest tier of Trolls, and they will do a decent amount of damage, but Trolls are prone to dying if you misuse them. In this mod and not sub-mod, and the Mountain Trolls are the most squishy. The Goblin Band, very low tier unit, slightly better than the Snaga Stalkers. They can do Skilltron, which is the big difference. If you want to bog down the enemy for a little bit longer, the Goblin Band aren't a terrible choice, I suppose. And the Rudau Swordsman. Now, this is a unit which does need to be rebalanced in terms of cost, because if you look at their stats are honestly not particularly fantastic, and they cost 900 florins, which is very strange. I think maybe if they can keep the stats as they are, but they really do need to rebalance the costing, because at the moment the Orc Marauders are an equivalent unit and you get much more of them in a unit, and they are much cheaper, so some sort of change is needed for the Rudau Swordsmen to make them viable. But, you know, they're a good looking unit, so I hope they do get made viable. Now we move on to some of the stuff that makes Gundabad so dangerous. The Witch Realm Hammer Guard, which is the best shock infantry you have available to you. One of the best shock infantries there are, actually. At least last time I checked. That might have changed a little bit, but I can't imagine the Witch Realm Hammer Guard got much better or worse. Mainly because they have a very high attack score, very high defense score, effectiveness against armor, and they have 3 hit points. There's not really much to hate about the Witch Realm Hammers. Now, you can only have one before the cost increases enormously, so use them wisely. Then you have the Guardians of Khan Doom. They have actually been buffed since last I looked at them, because they have been given hit points, which means they are now one of the better heavy infantry units you can get. Very well armoured, shield wall, you know, can potentially very, very tough to break down. Then the Trolls, the higher tier Trolls, the Snow Trolls of course, good. Potentially the best off the charge, but really the Trolls of Gundabad have a slight edge on them because they have a bit more survivability in melee, which is all important for Trolls because there aren't many of them. You can survive as long as possible. Then the Witchers. Now the Witchers are essentially Nazgul, which are slightly worse in melee. Well, noticeably worse in melee actually. But they also have a devastating ranged attack. They will be able to fling fire at the enemy, and this will be able to essentially eviscerate an entire unit, and maybe a little bit more before committing them to the melee where they can tip the fight even further. Very effective unit, the Witchers, if you use them correctly, but they don't have much ammunition, and if you misuse them, it can be a bit of a waste of money. So you've got to be careful. The Witch Realm Blackguard. The best heavy infantry unit you have available to you. 3 hit points is a lot. High defense score. Obviously it's not quite on the tier of the dwarf infantry, but still very, very effective. Going to be very difficult to kill. Ideal place for your general if he's not in a Witcher unit because of that very high defense score. You could put them in the Witch Realm Hammer Guard unit as well, but you know, it's up to you really. I prefer to put them in a Blackguard unit because of that extra survivability. Low tier archers, the Snagger archers of course. Their 9 missile damage is not terrible, but that melee score, oof. Not going to take much to rout them. And the Goblin Trackers again, it's like, well, they actually have less missile damage, which is odd. And it's not like their melee stats are really worth it either. Well, regardless, 2 very low tier archers, but if you want decent archers, you do have the Numenorian Shadow Guard. 13 missile damage is pretty good. It's not one of the top tier archers that there are, but you can still field a half decent archer contingent now. 900 is a lot though, and you really want to be spending your money elsewhere, in my opinion. You still have the Rudauer Scouts, of course, only 100, not particularly fantastic. Cavalry, high tier cavalry will make a mockery of this. Good for running down cheap archers, I suppose, but not much else. The Wargs, good anti-cavalry. Again, the Volks champions are basically just super powered Wargs. So, you know, melee Wargs, you know what you're going to get from them. Pretty good against cavalry, but ultimately they are kind of squishy if you misuse them. The Witch Realm Inquisitors are your cavalry unit that will offer you the muscle. They are a good cavalry unit on their own, but unfortunately, on their own is how they're going to be. You're going to have to flank them with wargs. And against the likes of Rohan and Gondor, you may struggle to win a cav fight, but you can at least be competitive, and that's the important thing. And then you have the Warg Skirmishers, of course, I've spoken about them before. Javelin cav, potentially very damaging, but micro-intensive siege. And then the Hillmen, which are another low tier spear similar to the Goblin Band. Probably slightly better than the Goblin Band. Well, yeah, that little extra defense and attack does make them a little better, but ultimately low tier units like this are, you're going to make them struggle to pay for themselves. So with that, let us select our army. Now I will put my general in a Witches unit because it is always fun to use the Witches. That increasing cost. Right, I don't think I'm actually going to bring the Witcher on Blackguard or the Hammer Guard. Well, I might bring the Hammers. Yeah, I'll bring a unit of Hammer Guard. I'll bring a couple of units of Trolls. And what else shall I bring? Bring a couple of units of Guardians of Khan Doom. And some Pikes, of course, because I'm outnumbered, so I'm going to be camping pretty hard. I'm half tempted to not bring many archers, but I do think I will need some, so I'll bring... Wait a minute. I only have one well, I take it back then. If I can only have one Numenorian Shadow Guard, your chances of fielding a decent archer contingent are gone, basically. So we're going to have to bring a couple of Snagger archers. Where else should we spend our money? We need something that's fairly damaging, so I think we will get the Black ORCS of the Mountains. And... which one? Scourge Raiders? Okay. I have 2 of them, and 2 of these guys, I think. Is there anywhere else we can have like a slightly better unit? We can have another unit of Guardian of Khan Doom instead. Or we could have another Rudauer. Actually, we could have 4 Rudauer Berserkers. Okay, I think that'll work. Now, let's get some upgrades on these guys. Can't upgrade the armor of any of these. Unsurprising, considering the extremely high defense score that they have anyway. Okay, that'll do. So my archer force is relatively small, which means my ability to equalize with the greater numbers I'm facing is going to be slightly less, especially seeing as 2 of them are Snagger. But then, I guess archery was never meant to be Gundabad's strong point. So, let us commence the battle. So here we are in the Gulf of Loon. And I have my pipeline ready to face the enemy, who are taking their time getting here, but they are actually advancing, so I can't complain too much. Again, you know, simple. I'm just going to let them come to me, and then we'll have a little look at how they fight. Get some cinematic angles of things, I suppose. I do like the Black ORCS, actually. I like the fact that their weapons seem to be sort of very brutal and just sort of... some of them look rusted, and it looks cool. I like the Black ORCS. They're a unit for the Misty Mountains as well. Good, effective unit. I've had them perform very well for me every time I've used them, pretty much. These are the Witches. There is Azog. He looks kind of dopey. Yeah, the Witches have got that rather... I think it's the same... Well, it's a similar model anyway to the Barrow Whites from Moss. They're also flanked by some Hammer Guard, which is interesting. Right, the enemy are slowly but surely making their way towards me. I can see them through the trees. There are the Hammers. Excellent unit, the Hammers. Although I am glad they have been nerfed in the sense that you can only have one, like, feasibly. Because they were a little bit too strong to have more than one in your army. Especially considering that Gundabad's roster is now pretty darn impressive. They have got a lot of options everywhere. And options is often the thing that will win you these fights. If an army is predictable, you're going to have problems. A lot of Rudar Berserkers over here. It looks like they are just going to charge straight into it though. Let's fast forward, they're taking too long. Facing an army of Rohan and an army of Dale. Decent amount of Royal Guard. Right, here they come. Oh god. A decent amount of Royal Guard and Barding Herd, and they've got some decent units to them. Well, the Numenorian Shadow Guard are now firing. Not sure how many kills the Snaga are going to get, but I do have the Witches, capable of dealing damage to pretty much an entire unit, laying them low. So we'll see. Ordinarily, Gundabad's ranged capabilities are going to be very limited, but on the attack they can be very good as well. Go with Snaga. Clearly the best unit in the game. I didn't bring the Snaga Stalkers because I thought they'd be too overpowered. Should be banned from competitive play, to be honest. Let's have a look. A lot of Hearth Watchmen. Some Ravanian Gedrouts. Some Dale Swordsmen in there. Decent mix of all their standard infantry and some of their high tier stuff as well. Well, they are just sitting there and eating a lot of arrows at the moment. Now they're coming forward. So Dale are going to engage me first and then Rohan. Dale are actually the slightly less elite army, so this might actually work in their favour. We'll see. This walking into battle thing is not really working out for you. Yes, you are under attack, and you don't seem to care about it too much. Here they come. At least I thought they were going to attack. And here they come. Some Hearth Watchmen are going to meet my Guardians of Khan Doom, which is not going to go too well for them. Unless I try and do flank around to the side of my Pikes, which isn't a bad idea per se. They are dawdling far too long on the periphery of my ranged units. I mean, waiting for Rohan is not a terrible idea because I can try and overwhelm my lines, but I can just commit enough units to hold them at bay, I think. So they were better off trying to whittle down my pike line earlier, I think. Who can tell what the AI is thinking? Barding Herd are taking the real beating from the arrows, which is not a bad target for them to go for. There are some slightly more elite units in here, like the Earls, but my unit Barding Herd is looking decidedly unhealthy. What are you going to do then, huh? Well, here come Rohan. Looks like Rohan are going to be the first to attack. Interesting. Or are they? Very nice of the AI to cooperate in this fashion with me. To just... Oh wait, here they come. Why are you sending up your Royal Guard on their own? You must have lost your mind. Alright. Well, we need to... They are finally getting in on the action now. That Royal Guard victory is almost a certainty with the Royal Guard. Well, then we'll just commit them early. Who's this? This is good droughts. They are not going to get much done against the pike line. Defeat is almost a certainty for the Royal Guard now. Still got the hammers. I have the trolls. Actually, you know what? For the trolls, I'm actually going to just commit them earlier. Try and smash into the side of these Dale lines. Because nothing they've got there is overly scary. It's Royal Guard though. Front and centre leading the charge. Hold on. Swing my berserkers out a little wider. You can charge into them. Just going to go up and down their lines if we can with our trolls. And then we'll move forward with the Guardians of Kandun. There are a lot of them there. But stuff like Hearth Watchman is not going to do very well against trolls. And they are not committing nearly enough. Overwhelming is really the best option that they have. And they are not taking it. Let's pull you guys actually back out. More berserkers into the fight. Those good droughts are not doing terribly well. We'll just move up the hammers just in case they try and sneak more men through there. Archers are still firing. What are they doing? The AI is... No, wait. You guys don't pursue them. There's the very depleted units of Barding Herd. But now the time has come to commit the Snugger to the melee. The hammer blow approaches. The AI is very odd tactics will cost them here, ultimately, as we said. Like, there is too much of a big target over there for me to ignore with the witches. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to charge forth everything. If they're going to engage me piecemeal, then I'm going to be able to easily get around. They are trying to get around me, which is not a terrible idea, but... What are they doing? Okay, you know what? You engage them. You charge in there. Not one of my trolls is dead yet. Not like they don't have good units available to them either. Okay, let's see if we can't get some nasty shots off with these guys. Right, who should we target? We need a big blob, really. Oh, there's a blob back there, but they're running all over the place. It's complete chaos for the enemy. Well, I need to hurry up, because otherwise I'm going to have no targets. Actually, you know what? Victory is a distinct possibility for these guys, so let's attack them. Come on, guys, wind up. They will attack, I promise. Please. No. Right, we're gonna have to go back over here. There should be a way, in Medieval 2 in general, to just say, you know what, I don't give a shit about friendly fire, I'm going to attack. That would solve all of the problems with your artillery not doing what you want it to do. There's a big blob over there. Fire. Now they're firing. Oof. It is nasty. They don't have much ammunition, but they get tons of damage done to units like that. Excellent way of dealing with elite infantry, actually. you find yourself up against someone like the dwarfs, for example, or dwarves, I'm playing too much Warhammer, they'll get a ton of damage done. They also take quite a while to reload. Oh look, the elves are in combat. This is going to probably break them, to be honest with you. No, they're still fighting. Defeat seems certain, of course, but... Oh, bit of friendly fire there. Good job. The Numenorian Shadow Guard should probably be committed to melee to help hold back the elves. What's going on? Complete chaos. Victory is almost a certainty over there for the... Okay, well, we'll move a unit of Pikes over there then. Right, and we have actually run out of ammunition. So they did their damage. What's going on over here? Which Realm Hammer Guard? Oh, they were fighting a unit that was routing. These Riddermark Axemen. Riddermark Axemen are pretty good value for money, but they're not going to be able to beat Hammer Guard. Guardians of Kharndoom are doing very well. They are actually starting to kill my trolls off now, so there must have been some of the armor-piercing units like the Barding Herd and the Riddermark Axemen in here. But the Rohirrim army is collapsing at the seams over here. We need to get my witches into the combat. Turn this fight around against these Gadrouts and these yawling swordsmen. The witches should do very well for themselves. There they go. Okay, so things are looking pretty good. Over here, the Earls have managed to cause a little bit of a dent in the line, but ultimately there aren't enough of them. And also I have more Black Urks in the mountains. And there goes the Dale General. I just saw him collapse. That's always nice. What are you doing? Oi. My units are all over the place at this point. A lot of routing from the enemy. Always good to see. So the Dale army is probably going to completely break, actually. Half the enemy force? That's being very generous. It seems certain. Where are my trolls? Well, there's a unit of trolls, but... Oh, there's a unit of trolls way back here, attacking the routing units. Right, we need to rout some of these guys for good. Some of the Snaga didn't fare well in melee, alas. That must be why I won so easily. The enemy spent all their effort trying to kill my Snaga. There aren't many left. The Royal Guard probably won't break though. Even though defeat is a distinct possibility. Sending in a lot of Black Urks to just finish them off. What's this over here? Riddermark Axemen, they're about to be clattered into by these trolls. They actually won't do badly against the trolls though because of their armor piercing. Axemen are pretty good against trolls. Well, there goes the Rohan General, so they probably will break now actually. I love the Guardians of Kharndoom's shields. What's this over here? You know, Dale Swordsman just over there. Let's get some Snaga into them. I'll show them. Right, the Royal Guard are breaking now. Where are the remaining troops? They better not have returned to the fight while in the trees. I don't really fancy going to look for them. Hopefully this is the last unit. Oh dear. Oh, they routed at the sight of the Snaga. I mean, who wouldn't? So where are they? There must be some units. Still not... Ah, here we go. Unit of Yawling Swordsmen. Returning militia as well. Okay. This should be over with pretty quickly. Although it was my Numenorian Shadow Guard that got into the fight first, which is a bit of a shame. No. You get out of there and attack the Yawling Swordsmen. They're wavering. Pretty sure they're going to break on contact, or they broke before. Those trolls, though. Right, now kill the militia. Oof. Militia are not made for killing trolls. They're simple farmers. There must be more over here. Yeah, with a Mark Axeman. Hunting them down at this point. I'll just increase the speed a little bit. They're routing, pretty much it. Judging from the balance of power, there's only one unit left that isn't breaking. They could be anywhere. Why did I have to pick a map with trees? What was I thinking? What happened here? Yawling Swordsman. They're routing already then. Rohan Spearmen are routing. Oh, there we go. Good. So a lot of kills. They didn't really get many kills on me. Most of that would be Snaga. The Witchers got a decent amount of kills for what they did. This is going to be the sort of level of kills you get at range normally. But again, it's all about the quality of your kills. Of course, I just went for a big blob. Generally speaking, you're going to want to go for an elite infantry unit because that will really cut them down to size no matter who they are. Even something like the Mithril Guard is going to really feel a volley from the Witchers. The Scrolls of Gundabad, of course, did very well, but again, there wasn't really much to counteract them in the enemy army. There was a few good units, but they committed them to the front line against the Pikes instead of the Trolls. So, yeah, Trolls will do exactly what they say. And Guardians of Kharndoon did very well. You know, they were up against some softer targets again with the Trolls, so it's no surprise that they minced their way through Hearth Watchmen and Rohan Spearmen. Witch Round Pikes didn't get many kills, but then they just held the line. Not many of them died. There was one unit which had to deal with a charge from the Royal Guard early on, and then the Earls, which, you know, took a few knocks, but it's fine mostly. Numenorian Shadow Guard got a lot of kills. Snaga Archers got a lot of kills as well. For what they are, anyway. And then fairly standard kills across the board for the Black Uruks and the Rude Hour. Again, pretty good performances by some of the Black Uruks in particular. But yeah, this is Gundabad, and I really like Gundabad now. They are one of the more well-rounded factions. They have a bit of a weakness at range, and on horseback they do lack a little bit, but in terms of their infantry contingent, they have so many options that I think that they are now very viable against any faction, and they have some very strong other units as well, like the Witchers. I always mention Mordor had the best toys in vanilla, and Gundabad have got in on the action now with some of their new units. But next we shall return to the good factions, and I think we will do the Sylvan Elves next. Return to the Elven Realms.